Good morning, everyone. My name is Raya Testa, together with my partner, Miss Angel Ginap. We are now on the lesson 3, Approaches in Teaching Literature. Learning objectives. At the end of this lesson, students are expected to, first, differentiate the 3 approaches for teaching literature. Second, develop understanding and appreciation. And third, engage in activities contextualized to a particular approach. Approach, according to the Macmillan Dictionary, is the particular way of thinking about or dealing with something. Approach is a set of principles, beliefs, or ideas about the nature of learning which is translated into the classroom. Thus, in the context of teaching literature, approach would mean the best way that a teacher uses to teach literature to learners in the classroom in order to achieve his or her goal of imparting relevant and meaningful knowledge to the learner. Aim and approach go hand in hand in teaching. If one has a clear-cut aims in terms of the lesson, per se, and expectations from the learner, the decision on what approach to tackle that will suit the needs of the learners and make learning of great value and interest will come easy. This lesson will focus on the approaches employed and challenges encountered in the teaching of literature towards successfully accomplishing its objectives and not a mere futile exercise. The 3 approaches in teaching literature are traditional approach, language-based approach, and reader-response approach. So let's begin on traditional approach. The teaching of literature in our school has become mainly lecture-based with a conventional use of traditional teacher-centered approach. In this classroom setting, the teacher provides background information like the social, political, and historical background to a text. Teacher is responsible in giving knowledge and information to students. It demands a lot of teachers' input in giving students various contents of literary texts. Knowledge of literature is delivered as a source of information to students. It includes reading from the criticism or notes on the explanations and lectures given by teacher for examination's sake. The learners, on the other hand, have only a few opportunities to do the task by themselves and formulate their feelings and responses about the reading text, which tends to make this approach quiet teacher-centered. The teacher teaches knowledge about literature and its background information. He or she elicits information to students about the text. He or she explained the content of the text to the class. He or she may be asked questions to the students based on what they have learned from the text. As a consequence, the students become parrot-like, merely repeating what has been presented in class. When we say parrot-like, mechanically imitated or repeated without thought or understanding. Generally speaking, this approach does not consider the learner too much. Learners thus read a large number of literary works, but whether or not their capabilities of assimilating, appreciating, and analyzing are developed and nurtured is questionable. Students are given activity like comprehension questions exercises, attended lecture sessions, read notes from workbooks and handouts. Through these, students get information about the literary text.
The Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the Great Depression, passed the the tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which raised or lowered tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone? Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice President Bush called this in 1980? Anyone? Something DOO economics. Voodoo economics.
So, the traditional teaching is not always effective because it focuses on the teacher rather than the students. The students are passive and have limited opportunities to participate. Students tend to lose focus during the lesson. All students move through the lessons at the same pace. The information is quickly forgotten. Students do not have to do any higher order thinking, and overall students find this type of lessons boring. So this is the example of traditional approach.
Second approach is language-based approach. In this approach, the student's attention is focused on the way language is used in the literary text, drawing the attention of the learner to various aspects of the target language like grammar and vocabulary among others, thereby either improving, increasing, or enhancing his awareness of the language. Language-based approach helps students pay attention to the way the language is used when studying literature. Take note, it is a student-centered and activity-based for productive use of language. So unlike the previous approach that we mentioned, this one is a student-centered and activity-based. It improves students' language proficiency and incorporates literature and language skills among the students. Also, it engages students more on experiences and responses. They expose to group works, different language activities like cloze test, jigsaw puzzles, prediction exercises, debate, and other performance activities like drama, role-play, and portrait recital. That enhances their linguistic skills.
So as you see, there are 3 places for our visitors, and you will work in pair to discuss and ask and answer with your friends some questions about what you should bring when you go on holiday. Alright? So, 2 of you, 1 group, 2 of you, and then 2 of you. Okay, and the time is over. So any guys volunteer? So in mind, please. Number 3. Okay, so go ahead.
Hi there, what are you doing? Well, I'm heading for my vacation, but you think I should take one with me? It depends on where you are going. Well, I'm going to Thailand. It sounds great. I think you should take your sunscreen and a bikini if you want to go to the beach. Good idea. What else? Besides some basic things, I think that you should take your credit card, not bring cash, and copy your passport. Thank you very much.
Thank you, all of you. So give a big hand for participating.
In the short demonstration video, the teacher applied the language-based approach by doing an activity that emphasizes awareness of the language of literature that helps the language learners acquire the basic steps in learning a language. The teacher asked the students to grab a pair and make a short dialogue about what to do when going on a vacation. The dialogue must be spoken in front of the class. By doing this activity, it approaches students' responses and their experience with literature.
The last approach is the reader response approach. It recognizes that different people view works differently and that people's interpretation change over time. Literature may be judged according to how the reader perceives it instead of what the author intends. The text itself has no meaning until it is read by a reader. The reader creates the meaning. Analysis of the reader's role in the production of meaning makes someone's reading a function of personal identity. It encourages students to relate the themes to personal experiences. Reading as personal fulfillment and pleasure can be met while developing the language and literary competency. It also promotes students to associate the subject matters of the reading text with personal life experiences. This approach, rich in student-centered activities, grows out from the learner his or her varied responses while at the same time promotes his or her personal development and growth. The students asked to do journal writing, brainstorming, and small group discussions, write about their feelings and reactions towards an issue in the text.
Louise Rosenblatt said, "A reader makes a poem as he reads. He does not see an unalterable meaning that lies within the text. He creates meaning from the confrontation." Reader response theory stresses the interaction between reader and text. The intentions of the writer are irrelevant since a text can have multiple meanings that shift over time. In this theory, reading is a transaction or exchange in which readers construct meaning as they progress through a text. Because readers bring their own experiences and ideologies to the text, their responses will differ. The reader infuses personal meaning into verbal symbols on a page, and the text channels meaning through its structure. To create meaning in this framework, a reader must be active, constantly building and synthesizing meaning, paying attention not only to words on the page, but also to the images and emotions he or she is experiencing. The text does not embody meaning, but rather guides the active creation of meaning. But it's important to keep in mind that reader response is not the same as personal response. Rather, the individual responses are situated in a larger community of readers through active discussion.
The importance of these three approaches in teaching literature is that through these different approaches, educators can gain a better understanding of how best to govern their classrooms, implement instruction, and connect with their students. It helps students achieve their learning goals and enhance students' understanding. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed and learned a lot, and hoping that someday you can use these approaches in your teaching career. For that, get one piece of yellow paper, write your name, course, year and section, and answer the following.